All right, another show about the effects and the future of social media, likes and everything. Let's go. Yeah, when I first seen Yuri Deco, I immediately thought, Silent Sorrow, here we go again. I'm not a huge fan of Silent Sorrow. I've had a lot of struggles watching their shows. I absolutely loved Hike's story, but pretty much everything else hasn't really worked for me. But I'm always willing to give things a shot. I'm always willing to try that next show and see if that one really does capture me. And honestly, it's really not the art style that's really throwing me off with Yurei Deco. It's more in the, we're doing this again. It's really not that it's been done a ton of times, but we're doing the social media thing again. How many times are we going to do this? How many times are these old folks going to try to understand social media and make a story out of it? But I just got done watching the first 3 episodes of Yurei Deco, and this is my thoughts on it so far. Yurei Deco opens up with a tale. I'm not sure if it's going to be significant at any point. It seems to be addressed with a logo in several locations as Peacock, but it talks about this giant that had a ton of eyes that lived amongst the humans, and it was able to actually keep an eye on everything because one eye would sleep while the other eye was open. At some point, it ends up telling all the humans that one of the humans did something bad. And in fearing this, they all decide to kill the giant. Makes perfect sense. So they kill the giant, they feel bad about it, and then they make this memorial of this peacock out of it. After this story, we get a glimpse of this island. It seems like everybody that has residency in this island has to have a deco, which is pretty much like augmented reality. Like you have to have your eyeballs modified to see this augmented reality, or you have to wear glasses at all times. It seems like it's actually a restriction. They even have this one point where this girl decides to skip out on getting a surgery, and this notifying thing just keeps popping up saying, you need to go back. You need to go back. You're not finished yet. You're not finished yet. It seems like everybody has to have this augmented reality. And it seems like it makes sense as the story goes along. And what this deco basically allows people to do is, again, see this augmented reality world. You're allowed to kind of see everything of this augmented world within the reality. And they're also able to go into these virtual worlds. And the society itself seems to be built around the concept of likes. Like everybody, whatever they do, they're able to basically use likes as a currency. So if you do something really cool, you make a cool video, you hang out with people, you do something good, charitable, you get a like. And additionally, you take those likes and you're able to use them as currencies to buy things. Well, we follow this one girl, Barry, and at some point, her and her friends learn about this guy, Phantom Zero, this guy that's doing this big game, and that she wants to investigate to find this person. And at some point, while looking around to try to find this person, she ends up having one of her decos messing up. One eye is starting to mess up. So she's able to see this guy named Hack. And Hack is using some sort of augmented cloak upon himself to make it to where nobody can see him. While everybody's walking around with decos on, which are showing them this augmented world, he's able to use that to essentially hide himself. So when this eye is not working anymore and she's able to see reality, he's just walking around messing around with people. And nobody knows because, again, everybody has to wear the deco. Well, as she starts chasing him and he starts fleeing her and he's messing around with stuff and fleeing, at some point she has one of his cameras, this thing that's collecting data. Well, while Hack is trying to sneak into Barry's place to retrieve this thing that she got of his, this phenomenon happens. This is thing that's happening, occurring in different locations known as the zero phenomenon, where everybody's happy-go-lucky currency, their likes, are resetting to zero, which is not a good thing. It's almost like everybody's bank account in that area just being reset. Not only that, but Hack and Barry end up getting transported into this virtual space where they're being attacked by these zeros. And as they're fleeing, they eventually run into this mysterious figure that is known as Phantom Zero, which is technically the person that Barry really badly wants to find. So she's excited, but Hack's like, no, we gotta get the heck out of here because this thing's trying to erase our data. Well, they end up escaping. We start to see more about Hack and what he's kind of doing in the background, all while Barry's trying to find Hack. And eventually, Hack gets arrested. He's charged for this whole zero phenomenon, and Barry's trying to help him out. So joining forces with some other people that know Hack, including Finn, they end up creating this virtual space where they're able to recreate what happened that night, and to really discover that while he was over here, this whole zero phenomenon was happening over here, so it's not necessarily his fault. But it doesn't really matter, because they end up fleeing anyways, and they run away, and then an explosion happens, and then it ends the 3rd episode, so it doesn't matter anyways. Probably the biggest kick I got out of the show is that they have this whole segment where Barry goes in there disguised at this courtroom. Everybody just kind of lets her in. She shows all this data they spent an entire episode to develop that shows that it's not Hack that did it, just to go, oh, the Phantom Zero is attacking this prosecutor, and they just run away anyways. So it's like, okay, well, they're at fault no matter what. So what was the point of this entire episode? Anyways, that's besides the point. My thoughts on Yurei Deco. All right, let me address this part first. This part right here, which is Silent Sorrow. I don't have a problem with Silent Sorrow. They've done a couple works that I've enjoyed, especially Hike Story. Hike Story was phenomenal. I thought it was beautiful. Such an artistically beautiful and emotional ride. But I will state, I don't like their art style. I've never liked Silent Sorrow's art style, and that includes with Yurei Deco. I think it's just a vomit of colors. It's not really, it doesn't really have a style in there besides just kind of, I don't know, tie-dye mixed with oversaturation. It's not terrible. Don't get me wrong. I love some of the character designs, but at the same time, it's not, I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of it. That's just plain and simple. It's not a bad thing. You can enjoy it, just not my style. The animation is fine. I find a lot of it's very simple, and that's typically what Silent Sorrow does. Silent Sorrow typically does simple for the sake of doing a lot of animation, and I appreciate it for that. So I give them credit for where credit's due. A lot of the show is moving. It's constantly moving, and I give them a lot of credit for that. And I give a lot of credit to the sound design and the music. They're doing a lot of changing of tracks. Constantly stuff is moving. Again, similar to before, not my favorite tracks. I don't like any of it, but at the same time, it's a lot, and they're doing a lot with that. And so I can give that appreciation as well. So now with all that out of the side, with the visual and the audio presentation out of the way, let's get into the nitty gritty, which is technically the characters and the story itself. Again, the overall story is yet another social media-like story. And I don't know yet this is going to do anything unique that will fascinate me, so we'll have to wait and see where exactly it goes. Like I've stated several times before with isekais, I watch a lot of isekai. They all start out the same way, and I'm always looking to see what they do differently. So that's no real different with this case. We're opening up with another likes, dislikes, social media takes over the world concept. Social status is everything, so we'll see where it goes from there. I will admit that we're already a quarter into the show, and I haven't really seen anything that it's trying to say at this point. They have dabbled a little bit into how somebody can take advantage of somebody else's likes. This guy basically inherited his father's likes, but doesn't, at least what Hack says, he doesn't pay for his father's funeral. I don't know if that's true or not, but he states that he didn't. So it can kind of show how somebody can take advantage of somebody else's likes. Additionally, it was trying to hit a little bit on the idea of the reliance on that, how easily it can go away with this idea, this zero phenomenon taking out everybody's likes, but it's like the next morning these guys go by with vacuums and everybody's hearts are restored. So it doesn't even seem like it's trying to say anything about that. And finally, it does kind of get into a little bit about the background, the governing systems behind it, as you see that Barry's mother and father work for this organization that essentially curates everything that people post in this database, I guess. So if somebody takes a picture or something, it seems like everybody's connected by one social media network, and they are the ones that go through and go, this is allowed, this isn't allowed, this is allowed, this isn't allowed. So if it's something negative, they'll get rid of it. If it's something positive, they'll allow it. And they haven't really said too much about what they're doing there, except for the idea they're trying to cover up things that will make people worry. So it's dabbling a little bit in the idea that this society itself is trying to make sure that people feel comfortable at all times, and anything negative is try to push away. Getting into that whole idea that everybody here feels comfortable, despite the fact that things are happening, so they don't see it. Which, again, it's nothing new, but maybe they'll do something interesting with it. And again, I guess that gets into my main core issue that I have with the show so far is, again, we're already a quarter ways into it. I feel like we would have established something that would be significant to the story itself, but we really haven't seen it. I guess the more impactful thing they've actually introduced that is technically interesting is the idea of the ghosts, or the Yurei. That's where we're getting the title from. Yurei, which is ghost, and Deco, which is these things they're using. So, ghost eyes, which I'm guessing may involve the idea that Barry is essentially using one eye without registration and the other eye with the Deco. I don't know, or if the fact that she's working with the people that are the Yuri. But yes, Hack, Finn, and several other people around them that are working with them are known as Yurei, which are basically ghosts of this world. And ghosts are essentially people that are not registered. So if somebody is born into this island, they're immediately registered into a family, and they get a deco, and they move on with their lives, and they do their like thing, and they get their currency, and they buy things, and they're happy. But for the people that are kind of born outside of the system, maybe they're born, underground, or if maybe they immigrate into this island, I'm not sure exactly how, they haven't really gotten to that explanation yet. But essentially, if they're not born the normal way inside of a hospital and registered like everybody else, they're known as ghosts, because again, they're not in the system, and they don't have a deco. And so they're kind of seen as an oddity, because if you don't have a deco, if you're not in the system, you can't make likes, you cannot buy things, you kind of have to scrounge for yourself. You're an outcast of society. People don't even see you. Well, technically they do. You're just not allowed in these virtual worlds and stuff like that, unless you brute force your way in. But again, going back to my argument earlier, that's kind of the extent of it so far. They're just seen as people that are outside the system. They're not developing likes or anything. It hasn't really established if can they not be registered? Are they not allowed to register? Do they not like to be registered? Are they outside of the system for the sake of being outside of the system? Do they not like the system? Obviously, they're going to get eventually into the idea that the system is bad because, again, they're hiding all the bad things of the world. But it hasn't really sold me yet on why they're not in the system. Again, are they not allowed to be in the system? The characters themselves... I think that's the biggest weak point this show has, is the characters... I don't know. I don't really know. Betty is just... everything's lovey, and she runs around saying everything's lovey, and she sees something exciting, yells lovey, and then runs towards it. She doesn't want to do her schooling. She does have a little bit of that, a child trying to push away from their parents, being rebellious, but at the same time, she's never reprimanded for it, but one time when she used her parents' virtual reality things to go into their workplace, which is understandable why she would get in trouble. It doesn't seem like they really cared to do anything to punish her. It's very wild. Again, I guess that's the aftermath of a family that is so kind of grounded into the world of positivity, but her parents are constantly seeing the negativity because they work at the organization. So I don't see that being an aftermath of the society itself, unless they don't want to instill negativity upon their daughter by actually punishing her. And Hack is just... similarly, he just runs around and says zippy zappy, zoopy zoopy, zippy zip zoopy. I can't get anything out of Hack. Like, if Hack's dialogue is purposely goofy and just wild, I can't get a sense for if he's worth a damn. Like, I don't know if he's a good person. I don't know if he's a bad person. I don't know what his driving force is because I don't understand what he's talking about. And again, it's technically, that's his quirk. Finn's probably the closest person we've gotten to a normal person, and we haven't really seen them for very long. They just show up at some point, bring Barry to where Hack's place is at, and then they think of a plan that does nothing in the future. Mixed in the middle of there, between the characters and the overall story, there's not really much to say here. It's just a lot of running around. And again, give credit to Silent Sauter for constantly making things move. It really does kind of feel like a movie in the idea that it's trying to keep something happening on the screen. It's trying to have some chasing. It's having some person jumping across buildings. It's having data chasing them through a virtual world. But at the same time, it's not very creative in what it's doing. It's just people running, and it's not fun to watch. I had several times where it was just surprisingly enough, several action scenes where I'm watching it and I'm not entertained. Like, I'm literally falling asleep because yes, I'm saying this. I want to fall asleep watching an action scene. Like, nothing's happening in it. It's just characters running, lasers going off, and Hack throwing paper airplanes at the Phantom Zero for the 50th time. It's not very creative in the action scenes. There was a couple points where it did some cool stuff, like having the environment itself shifting around to throw them off. But for the most part, it's just them running and running and running and laser shooting and running. So we'll see. That's my thoughts so far on Yurei Deco. It could possibly do something going forward, but so far, like I said before, just to nutshell it, I'm getting nothing out of the characters so far because they're just verbal tics and either positivity or I'm mysterious. The world itself is very generic, futuristic, dislike currency world. We'll see if it does anything special. Hopefully they'll explain more into the ghosts themselves and again, why they can't be actual people in this world. Do they not want to? And yes, we'll probably eventually get to the point where we find out that this is all a bad thing and they should break the system because the system is toxic in a way. And visually and audio, it's not my taste, but they're doing a great job. But yeah, if you're a Science Saru fan, I'm sorry. Every time a Science Saru show comes on, I always make the Science Saru fans super mad, but it's my taste, it's my likes, my dislikes. Take it or leave it. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below. Comment. Let me know what's thought of the series. If you're enjoying it, let me know. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'm always up to hearing other people's opinions, just like I hope that you guys are up to hear my opinion. Additionally, if you've not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions of all the shows of the season, as well as episode-by-episode impressions of certain shows. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. Definitely appreciate everybody that supports us, and y'all take care.